Hello and welcome to Digital and Social Media Marketing. This week we'll be looking at social media. So we have a few things to get through. First we'll do a quick introduction about what social media is. Then we'll look at social media activities, a social media plan and what that entails, look at different social media platforms and how to choose them, generating social media content, and then last of all, measuring success, our success on social media marketing. So the learning objectives for this week, first of all, to describe the parts of a social media campaign plan, and then to use a social media plan to design an effective marketing campaign. Select the best social media platforms for a variety of social media objectives, and then last of all, determine success measures of a social media marketing campaign. All right, so the introduction is, for the introduction, when we define what social media is, it's important to do this so we know what we're talking about, or what the technical definition is. So one of the most popular definitions, academic definitions, is a group of internet-based applications that build on the ideological and technological foundations of Web 2.0, and that they allow the creation and exchange of user-generated content. So it's got a few concepts in there. In this case, the term Web 2.0 is a short name for the interactive internet, which includes technological applications such as blogs, social networking sites, and virtual game worlds. This term's not really used that much anymore, but it just marks the differentiation between how the web was when it started, which was quite static, like you'd make a web page that wouldn't change, and it wasn't very interactive. So the new development to Web 2.0 enabled basically more interactive interactions, like more interactive social connections or relationships across the internet, and that gave rise to social media. All right, so in practice, what this looks like, these are the applications that we talk about when we say social media. So we have one thing having a definition, but what does that mean in practice? So Facebook's a social media, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, WeChat, TikTok, Facebook Messenger. So Facebook's one social media application, and Facebook Messenger is another one. They are separate. Telegram and Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, the original TikTok. And I've got an image here from Hootsuite, and this shows the world's most used social media platforms by global active users. So Facebook is by far the biggest one, and then next is YouTube, and then WhatsApp is fairly big too, and then it sort of goes down to Instagram, WeChat, TikTok, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, and then so on and so forth. So it gives us a bit of an idea of what we're dealing with. So when we talk about social media, it's easy to talk about what to do, and this is what Facebook is, this is what Instagram is, and you click this button and whatnot. But from a university perspective, we don't just want to teach you what things are at the moment, because that's just going to get updated and be added. It's going to change and be outdated, next year. So we want to have a bigger picture than that. And it's not just what people are doing, but why these things are happening. Like, how do we explain this behavior? What does this mean for us in society? And how do we explain this at a much bigger level? So we're going to do that now. So we're going to delve into some social media theory. And when we look at, so I've given you a definition of what social media is, but when we look at like a collection of social media definitions of social media, a lot of them bring together the concepts of communities, social networks, and communication technology. And we can see that in the definition that I've had at the beginning as well. So the definition that I've used in our research is the combination of social networks and communication technology that enables communities to build relationships. And this is from a marketing perspective then, because it's really focusing on that relationships. And we know from principles of marketing, or when we study marketing, really our objective is to develop valuable relationships with, profitable relationships with our valuable clients, right? So you can see the overlay of marketing in there then. All right, so what then is community? So to understand what communities are, we need to go all the way back, to 384 to 322 before Christ, like thousands of years ago. And so Aristotle, in his book on political philosophy, he called it politics, and that's the same concept that we use today when we talk about politics. So Aristotle was an ancient Greek philosopher, and he was developing these notions. He developed the notion of community as a collection of parts. So if it's a collection of parts to make a bigger thing, right, have some functions and interests in common. So we break down, so it's within a big system or something like an environment, or however you want to explain this container, within this thing that we're examining, there are different parts in there, but those parts, we can find something that's similar across them that bind them together as well. And it's similar to the way that we understand complexity as well. So, but really what he was saying is a community is which is analysing what things have in common. So the unity that they have in common unity. And we get this from social media then as well. So originally communities were place-based, and you think about the development of humankind and where we are today. Before, a lot of the people that we'd interact with were the people in our village. Like when I say we, I'm talking about humans, the people in our village, because that's all we had access to, right? We couldn't travel a world on a jet around the world, or we couldn't use the internet, right? So the only people that could really talk to were the people that were physically present. So these were your neighbours, the people that lived right next to you, and maybe a village that you were trading with, all right? So sense of community then has been very place-based. But with the advance of computer-aided communication, the notion has changed, and now community is no longer just place-based. It's now we look at communities of interest, and that centre on social networks. So let's look at what these social networks are then. So the idea of social networks developed out of the study of sociology, and early sociologists like Durkheim, Weber and Marx, these had a big contribution to the way that we understand the world around us today. So these types of sociologists, they are the original pioneers of our comprehension of what social networks are. So the fundamental distinction between traditional community and modern society. So in the traditional community, that has strong links with a small and stable group of and directed person-to-person interactions or relationships, right? So that's how things used to be. But with modern society these days, it's more abstract and has more temporary, impersonal and functional links that are more flexible. And you can sort of notice the differences. So if you look at traditional community, and if we go back to our sense of what, I'm going to go back two slides here, what Aristotle was talking about, where they were a collection of people that have things in common. Go forward again. So they were very strong links because you lived with them and you couldn't escape it, right? Where in modern society, if we're centered around these communities of interest, they're a lot more transient and you can change. You can go, well, I'm interested in this, but now I'm no longer interested in that. Now I've got another, network, a social network that I'm involved in, centered around a new interest that I have. So they're a lot more less durable, put it that way. So the theoretical concept of social networks was introduced by this guy called Barnes in 1954, so it's not that long ago. And he had this, he went out and he was observing how people interacted, right? And he had this book he published. It was called Class and Community and Committee of a Norwegian Island Parish. And he was just really observing people and how they interacted. And then he developed this concept of social networks. And you find it as a set of points, some of which are joined by lines. Now the points of the image are people, so each node, or what we call these days nodes, or each dot, or sometimes groups of people, and the lines indicate which people interact with each other. So that was what he used to sort of display, like visually represent the phenomenon that he was observing, and we still use this today. So these concepts are used to study social media, and we call it social network analysis. And we've got a map here, which is a mapping of social network interactivity on the web. So a long time ago, you can see how deep it is, right? And we have this concept of strong ties and weak ties. Now, strong ties are relationships that you can't break or are very difficult to break. So like your relationship with your mother or your father, you might get angry at them, but that's still going to be your mother and father. You could completely cut yourself off from your family, but it doesn't happen very often. It's a very strong tie. Whereas just say your mates at a footy club, so you join a footy team for a season and you start playing footy, you're friends with them, but when footy season's over, you might not really hang out with them that much or be that much you're involved with them. So that would be something of a weak tie. Now, the study of social networks, so that's how we examine these things. So we look at, well, how are people interact with each other, and what are the strengths of those the ties or relationships that connect those people together. And social network analysis has become an interdisciplinary academic field. It gets studied in sociology, of course. It gets studied in information communication technology, ICT. The computer people do that. And of course, for us in marketing, we use that to map out how our customers and stuff interact for social media and network analysis. All right. So the third concept of social media then is communication technology. Now, when we go right back to, what is social media and where did it come from, it was sort of originally in the 1960s, there was this Plato system, and it was basically, it was a computer program to help people learn, right? And part of this program, and it was very old school, like it didn't have a graphical user interface stuff, like you had to type commands in there, had an online chat room. So you could post something and then other people could respond to it. And that was the beginning of how people started interacting over the web. And then we had these development of BBS, like bulletin board systems, which are effectively message boards, where lots of different people from different interests could post things on a topic board. And then we had internet relay chat, which changed things because that was instant messages, and you'd send a message and they'd get a notification pop up. You've got a message and you can reply. And you could chat instantaneously. So in the previously it was you post something on a board and then someone would read it and then write it and post it back on the same board. And that would happen over days. Whereas instant, it was just, I send it's backwards and forwards straight away. So that changed the way that people communicate over the internet. Communication technology includes both hardware and software technological development, and the research fields of ICT, or information technology, and computing science. Now, technological adoption is difficult to predict. So sometimes we've got this model called the technological adoption model and the adoption diffusion of innovations as well, right? Now, when we look at that stuff, sometimes technologically the more advanced technology, so if it's better, like technologically superior, like from an engineering perspective or a functional perspective and stuff like that, and you think, well, this is great, it doesn't always get adopted by people and communicate like that. So the computer science people get, extremely frustrated with that because they have this really good technology, but people don't end up using it because they don't understand that it's better or how it could be better. So that's why, like the sociologists and people like us that study human behavior, we go, well, it doesn't just have to be better, it needs to be perceived as being more useful and easy to use as well. So the key thing with communication technology is when I'm lecturing you now about social media, you've got the apps in your mind and you go, oh, Kev, we know what social media is, and you're thinking about what it is at present. So I've tried to do two things. Take it back so you understand the development, like a micro little bit of social media has been around for a long time. It's not just the apps that you have today, but also looking forward, social media is going to change into the future. So I'm not teaching you about social media as it is today. I'm talking about social media as a concept of what it was in the 1960s and what it is today in 2020s, and then what it's going to be like in the 2040s as well. All right, so we've got a big picture of social media. So although communication technology is continually changing in the way that it's going to be applied, social media is likely to take on different forms through different new applications, yet the idea of social media, the concept and the way that we use it to predict human behaviour and interact with people, that will still be relevant to professionals and organisations. And for us as marketing people, this is particularly in how we build and maintain relationships with customers. So now that we've got that kind of big introduction of what social media is, I'm going to pause it there, and then we're going to talk about social media activities.